And maybe getting some payments at the end of the month, I don't know. Swear just a little bit to offend. Okay, collaborative here. We can collaborate with the photographer too, but collaborative here. We are collaborating with you. No problem at all. You are an important part of the team, so don't worry. Thank you very much. So, collaborative here is that element where we do not treat the teacher as simply a king or an emperor or a queen or empress in her classroom, powerful but not accountable to anybody outside. Okay? It must be more like a democratic republic where collaboration happens and everybody has a role. The teacher, of course, partly collaborating with the students in that sense. It's a collaboration towards learning, but also collaborating with other colleagues, with the school as a whole, with a wider community, including parents, and of course with elements such as the ministry, the local education authority, and so on. So the teacher, in the terms of the assessment, the teacher must learn what is happening in the class, but also collaborate, inform parents, inform students, involve students also in the assessment process. And again, that's one of the balls we are juggling. Not easy to do it, but it's an essential aim. And I think all of you think to yourself, last time I did an assessment, did I share it with anybody? Or did I just write it in my book? Did I tell the pupils about it? Were the pupils involved in some way? Or the parents involved? And it's worth always thinking to yourself, to what extent am I building those links outside of this classroom and also outside of myself with other people in the group and outside? It's an important element of it, because partly if you do that, people start to understand why you are doing it. You think about those parents that we all love and we all hate. Many of us are parents as well, of course. Those parents may seem to us a bit like troublesome people who come and annoy us and stop us doing our work. But at the same time, of course, we need to convince them that we are doing a particular thing for a particular reason. I went a few weeks ago to my son's parents' evening at my son's school. And some teachers are superb at explaining to me as a father what they are doing and why, with my son sitting next to me. Okay? They want to tell me what he's doing without attacking him, without making him big-headed. It's a very difficult balance. So some teachers are really good at communicating what they are doing. I remember there's one geography teacher that my son has who really talked through with us, both of us, my son and me, about how the assessment happens in the geography exam that my son is about to take. And she explained to him what he needs to do. He needs to learn these particular words. He needs to read these particular books. And just by doing that, she was being superbly collaborative, because she was not only helping my son in front of me, she told him before in the class, but she was telling him again, but she was telling me, A, that she is a superb professional, and B, exactly what I must do to support him in the process. So I went away from that teacher thinking, wow, great, my son is in really good hands, because that teacher is explaining to me what she is doing. And she's not just saying, oh, I'm following the syllabus. She's expressing it from her own personal and professional point of view, and she came across to me as a brilliant professional. So I went to the head of the department and recommended she had a pay rise. I don't think he listened to me, but anyway, never mind. So that for me is an example of collaborating with pupils and parents, partly to explain to them what you are doing and why. So therefore the parents are on your side, they're not against you, they're on your side. Now again, this is one of those balls we are juggling. It's not easy, but I think it's a worthy aim as teachers that we should try to do that. What do we mean by evidence, the E of the voices model?
Recorded.
Yeah, again at the back.
Recorded.
Yeah, recorded in some way or other. Either evidence for myself as a teacher, so I know what happened last week. As I get older, my memory is fading. I sometimes forget my wife's name, so it's a bad strategy. No, I'm joking. But you need to evidence things for yourself as a teacher, so that after a few weeks' time you remember what was that pupil doing. So evidencing it for yourself, but also for the wider community, collaborative again, so you can show your colleagues, you can show your head of department, you can show the school and the ministry what you are doing in terms of the assessment. And you remember that I showed you a chart. Let me show you that chart again, actually, because I think it is this one. Now again, this is a frightening chart. This was developed by a Malaysian teacher. And you'll remember that I said yesterday that here, this is where she writes the names of the pupils down here. And here, these are the different areas of her work in language teaching: listening and speaking, reading and writing. Listening and speaking are put together in the Malaysian syllabus, which is why she put them together here. And each of these numbers refers, cross-references to an element of the Malaysian syllabus which she is assessing. So here, in each box, she will put a note or a number beside the name of her student. So at the end of the semester, all of these boxes, or most of them, not all of them, most of them, will have some little number in them as evidence that a particular pupil has met a particular benchmark. Now I, as I'm not a very organised person, I was amazed when I saw this teacher's work. I thought, wow, that's an organised person. I bet you at home she puts all the socks neatly in different drawers. Don't you think? She's really organised and systematic. But I would like to be, my aim is to be like this. And it seems to me a really good model that we follow, trying to be systematic and evidencing it as best we can. I'm not saying we will fill every box in, but perhaps in one lesson she will look at box 1 for 5 of the students. The next lesson she will look at box 2 for a different 5 of the students. Gradually over the year, over the semester, she will build up a record of what her students are doing. And this is a good example for me of phenomenal evidence, this evidence area that we were talking about yesterday. And all of this, of course, is systematic and structured and organised. Very often we have good teachers. I'm sure many of you are good teachers, as evidenced by your efforts in coming here today, paying your money and being part of this. That's a sign that you are the creme de la creme. Congratulations. Okay? And I'm sure that you are doing these things very well, but we can all be better, can't we? We can all be more systematic in what we do. And particularly with assessment, we can be more aware of the importance of it as we go. We can't really do it alone. We need that collaboration. We need other people to help us. But at least we can start and try to do these things in a more systematic way. Now, what I want to do today in the workshop part of it is I want to start thinking about how we can put this into practice in real classrooms. But before I do that, let me give a moment or two for any comments or questions or jokes or insults from you. Anything I've said so far, anything you'd like to comment on, anything particularly about your context that you would like to mention. Let's just have 5 minutes of discussion and feedback just to prove to me that you're not sleeping. Okay, yes, sir.
In the introduction yesterday, you talked about holding a forming and hard in.
Yes.
You talked about assessment, teaching and learning.
Yes.
But this point is not valid to what we're saying here, simply because teaching and learning and assessment are two sides of one coin.
Yes.
I cannot teach, I cannot learn without assessment.
Yes.
If you do away with assessments, you will be losing your destination and you don't know where you are going.
Fantastic point. You should come up here and do the talk for me. That's a great idea. But now, yesterday I said that we should grasp the thistle. You know what the thistle is? The thistle is the plant that the national flower of Scotland is a plant with many prickles, T-H-I-S-T-L-E. And an expression, an idiom we have in English is we must grasp the thistle or grasp the nettle. Grasp the plant which hurts you, because if you grasp it, it will actually hurt you less. You take control of the problem. And that's what I said yesterday, but your metaphor is a different one. You say a coin. Two sides of the same coin, and I agree with you 100%, and the whole point of my talk is to integrate the two together, but my worry is that sometimes that coin has only one side on it. The assessment side is often blank, and it shouldn't be. I agree with your point. It should be integrated together in the same point. So yes, I do agree with you, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, but in my experience around the world, it rarely is integrated. In fact, I would go so far as to say I've never seen it done perfectly around the world. There are many countries such as Malaysia are trying hard to do it, and it partly relies on the country. The whole Ministry of Education actually being systematic and collaborative as well. And that's not always easy. Ideally, it will work right the way through the system. Can I ask, how many of you are heads of department or heads of schools? How many of you have it right? You see, for example, you, I think, have a bigger burden even. Because not only is it up to you to do this in your own teaching, but it's up to you to make sure this is integrated with your staff. So the staff as well are supported in their efforts. Once that happens, then I believe the whole thing starts to operate in a better way. So thank you for your point. Yeah. Can I just, before that, can I just donate this chair to some of the ladies? One of the ladies. Okay, any more comments? Yes. Yeah.
I'm a teaching assistant in Ancient University. What about the very large numbers? How can I apply this model to a group of 500 students? How shall I apply this?
No, that's a very good and very important point. How can you apply this to large numbers? Well, I mean, obviously, to do it fully is simply impossible. We have to accept that. I mean, in fact, any language class, ideally, in my view, would be not more than 20 people, but that's pretty well impossible. And I said to you yesterday that I was teaching in classes of 120 in Sudan, so I know exactly. But even in a class of 120, I can't speak for 500, but a class of 120, you can get some awareness over time of who is doing what, who is good at what. And you can, if you are using your kind of ongoing observation and thinking about the whole class, you can still make a difference. And I think one way, actually, which I would do, myself personally, is I would make sure that there is a lot more mixing, for example, of seating arrangements. Very often in my class in Sudan, I would have the good students, I was at a girls' school, I'd have the good girls sitting right at the front keenly, and the ones who were bad, they were often very good at science, but they hated English, sitting at the back and literally trying to hide behind the others, literally. Okay? So one thing I would say is, involve them. Try and bring them up. And I remember one girl particularly, what was her name? Asma, I think her name was. And she was a really good scientist. She was famous in the school for being great at science, but she absolutely hated English. And I tried basically to bring her more, and her friends more in, bring them more to the front, just to kind of get them more involved. Now you could say that's nothing to do with assessment, but actually it's partly, isn't it? Assessment, if you widen it to include noticing what's happening with your learners, then part of that is bringing them more in, especially the ones who are reluctant. One thing I said to you yesterday, which I really think is an important point, when I was doing my research in Jordan and also in Malaysia and Indonesia, I noticed that a real weakness of teachers was including students in checking. So very often you would teach a language point, let's say can, I can, you can, he can, whatever it may be. And then you would check with one or two students here, have you got it? I can, you can, we can. And then the teacher would continue to the next point, failing completely to check around the whole class. And most importantly for me, checking randomly. Now I know we have this thing of teacher, 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 teacher all around the world, okay? But I tend to say, thank you very much, I love your Turkey, but please put your hands down. And I will ask you, in a nice way, I will ask you, each one of you, when I'm ready, and then I will say, okay, can you please, you at the back, your turn, you at the back, and then go around the class checking the 4 points, making sure that everybody is included, eye contact on everybody, pointing not with a finger but with a hand, saying, yes, you, making sure everybody is involved. Now this is a classroom technique, but it links, of course, with assessment. Now that's not going to solve the problem of 500 students, but it's going to be part of the process of bringing everybody into the frame. And for me it's an essential one. I remember observing one teacher when I was watching trainee teachers in Malaysia. And there was one teacher I watched who, for some reason, he would just teach the front few people. He would stand here like this, and he would basically look only at these people here. The whole lesson was just these people. Yes. And the rest of them were like invisible. Okay? And now he was a trainee teacher, so I was able to catch him early and say, why are you just looking at these people here? You know, teach everybody, use your eye contact all the time, so you check, you eye contact the people at the back. Okay? Now, you might not notice it, but if I check you now and again, and I look around the room, I should do it more systematically than I'm doing it actually, it wakes people up and makes them realize they're part of the group. If I don't, if my eyes are always down this, and sometimes people do a talk where they just read off their paper, the people at the back, they drift away and they think about their lunch. Of course they do. Why not? So this is, I mean, I'm not solving the 500 class problem, but it's part of it. And part of the ongoing issue of noticing and seeing what's going on. Yeah? Thank you for your question. Not a resolved question, but an important one. Yeah?
Well, traditionally we depend on tests and quizzes and activities even for assessments.
Yes.
Okay, but how can I make it more creative, more interesting, so students wouldn't feel, I have a test today, so I'm going to study because it's the test.
Yeah.
But if they don't have a test, they won't really bother.
Okay, well, that's a really good question. The point is, tests, students study for tests. If they don't, how can I make it more varied? Well, I think, again, variety is the spice of life in this as well. And I would say, okay, sometime, and of course my kids are the same. My son just studies his geography when he has a test coming up. But I would say, as a teacher, be varied. Some days spring a surprise test. Smile about it, laugh about it, make it funny, but give them a surprise test. Again, the idea of keeping them on their toes all the time. Okay? So that one day you say, okay, today class, I know I didn't tell you, but today I'm going to give you a quick test. And there's a prize of a sweetie for the one who gets most. Okay? A bit of surprise. And again, this point about being a bit random. Just like you choose people randomly around the class when you're checking, you also do tests occasionally a little bit randomly to keep them on their toes and to keep them surprised. And also, as I said here, variety, vary. Vary the format. One day make it a short written test. The next day just do an oral question and answer. The next day get a student to come and test the colleagues. Say, right, okay, stand up here, I want you to test your colleagues. Think of some good questions. Include them, collaborate, getting your students. Say, okay, next week we're going to have a spelling test. Okay, I want you, Ahmed, you choose the words that we're going to test your friends on. Okay, include him, make it collaborative, make it different. So I think, again, variety is a key element here. Keep them on their toes. I think people are so much on their toes they are leaving to find a comfy seat. Is that true? No problem, you're welcome. Okay, let's have two more questions, then we'll move on to the other part. Ladies first, I'll come to you in a minute. Yeah. Yeah, good question. In my assessment, do I need to abide by the syllabus or can I add other questions which test my student fluency? Well, it depends on two things. A, the school that you're in, and B, the test that you have to administer and the syllabus. Now, I would say teachers should be creative and flexible. Of course, we have to follow the syllabus, but we all know if we don't follow it completely, somebody will complain. But what you hope for is a supportive head of department and a supportive director. Okay? If you have those, you have more flexibility. But even so, you can add in extra things. If you stick only to the syllabus, it will be boring and students will get lazy. They will just follow the syllabus. Okay? I remember, again, when I was in Sudan, I had to teach George Bernard Shaw, Arms and the Man. Have any of you studied this? No. Yeah, it seems a common thing. In Sudanese secondary schools, it's a very common thing, actually. And I remember the headmaster, who was an enormous fellow, great big Maulana fellow, huge man like this. He brought me into his office and he said, Stephen, enough of this creative stuff. I'm glossing it a little bit. He said, I want you to teach them this Arms and the Man, word by word, so they understand every word. I want you to give them dictionary definitions. I said, I'm sorry, firstly I can't speak Arabic well enough to translate every word of Arms and the Man. Secondly, I will kill the story stone dead if I do that. So we agreed on a compromise. Many of them have their books where the previous students had written the words in anyway. Okay? So they have the books, and they can do it more or less word by word. If they want it word by word, I say go to your Ismi Dakhali and study it with yourselves, with your dictionary. In my class, we will not do it word by word, we will act it. We'll do it, we'll demonstrate. I will teach you the meaning of it, the understanding of it, the motivation of it, And between us, I hope we'll get you through the exam, but also give you some pleasure and interest. Actually, in my school, the school I was in was a rural school, not a single student had ever passed the national final exam to go to university, not one, in all the life of the school. Okay? So I thought to myself, well, I'm not really teaching these people to go to Cambridge, although probably some of them could. I'm teaching them to have some pleasure and enjoyment and get some motivation of English in their lives. It's not purely this final exam. So I have to think beyond the syllabus to some extent. But you're right, I have the pressure from the Maulana telling me what to do, watching me. At the same time, you have to find some sort of creative balance, I think. But yeah, sorry, one more question, then we'll move on to the workshop thing, but there will be time for more questions later. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for the wonderful information and the knowledge that you are imparting to us. Out of only 1 week ago experience,
yeah.
I beg you to comment on this. A question that I should ask to you and to my colleagues. Who should we blame whenever my students or our students face difficulty in responding to the assessment means we are using?
Okay.
What should we examine exactly?
Okay.
The students' achievement, right? Or the parents, or the family environment, or the book, or my techniques as teacher?
Okay, in line with current revolutionary and democratic thinking, let me put your question to the audience. So the question was, if I quote you correctly, who should we blame for poor performance on the part of learners? Anybody, shout out.
All of them.
Teacher, community, parents,
All of them.
syllabus. Yeah.
More teachers will feel
I think the answer
other
is
people,
all, isn't it?
other people will
It's a combination of things. And if you say blame, maybe that starts us off on the wrong foot. But you're right, there are causes behind it. But I would prefer to put the question more positively. What can we do about it to make the situation work in a better way? But it includes, absolutely, you're right. I think collaborative is a key element here. I mean, ideally speaking, you'll have a supportive ministry, supportive local education authority, supportive headmaster or headmistress, supportive head of department, and dynamic, wonderful teacher. But you can't always have all of those elements working together. But nonetheless, I do believe teachers can make a difference even if the other elements are not working. Often the pressure is from the community and the parents. I remember when I was working in Qatar, the chief examiner, in fact he was Egyptian actually, he said to me, last year when we changed the exams to try to make them more communicative, I had somebody come to my car and knife the tires of my car. And your people are under huge pressure from the local community. If you make changes in assessment, you can be in serious danger. I mean, we laugh about it, but that's dangerous, isn't it? You should involve them, yeah, and also you should not tell them where your car is parked. Okay, let's move on now, because I want to move more into the main element of the session. Now, if you're lucky, you'll have one of these mysterious handouts, but if not, maybe you can look here.
Which one?
Now, what you're looking at is the handout which has this this area here. Now, I want to think now about the V in voices. What does the V in voices refer to? Variety. Okay. And I want to think here, I know some of you are taking photos of it, but I'm very happy to email it to you, send it to you, put it on the web, whatever will suit you. I'm very happy with that, and I'll do that later. But what I want you to do is to think about what kind of assessment tools can we use for each of these 9 situations. Okay? Now, for reasons of time, I think let's just look at the first 5 of them. Okay, the first 5. Now, imagine that you're in this situation here. The teacher wants to check that all students are motivated and interested in a particular aspect of the teaching program. Now, what I like to do is think about this issue, and here on the right-hand side, if you have paper, you can write it in here. Otherwise, just use your book and think about it. So here on the left-hand side, this is the situation. Now, the first step in this game is to find a wise, intelligent, and lively neighbor.
Okay.
First step.
I found one.
Wise, intelligent, and lively neighbor. Okay? Moujud? Aku? Okay. Then, think about what tools could we use to do this. One of them, of course, will simply be noticing. Noticing, looking out for what people are doing on a moment-by-moment basis. But there are other tools you could use. Okay? So if you can think about different tools with your neighbor for numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Stop at number 5, that's enough. Okay? And just think about these 5 situations. And then in a minute I will ask you for your ideas, and the best one might win a trip to Barbados if I have my checkbook with me.
That's right.
Okay, so first of all, find a wise, intelligent neighbour, then look at these 5 and discuss it with your neighbour for a few minutes. And you're thinking about a variety of different tools. Okay?
You think a questionnaire would do?
I would go for observations to see how much
Observation?
yeah,
So you can have an observation log, right?
Yeah, I can understand it's difficult in schools, especially in Egypt. But you're saying maybe use a test?
We're going to find a way out from this. As a teacher inside my class.
excuse me, how long is your students? So you
Stage 3 or grade 3.
9 to
Yes, and we have just one target, we can reach it by